webinar on tips and tricks for SAP Business One. This is a series of webinars that Michell Consulting will be presenting. And today we're going to talk about some of the tips and tricks in SAP Business One to help you improve your software and show you a little functionality on the system. So let's begin. Right here. First thing I'm going to show you is a couple things in SAP, creating shortcuts. This is valuable to go directly to marketing documents, and also using the change log. So here we are in SAP Business One. So one of the things we can do is under Tools, we can go to the My Shortcuts, and we can customize the function keys. It allows you to set function keys for various processes within SAP. So I'm going to choose function key 5. I'm going to go to Sales and AR, and I'm going to go into Sales Order. Click Allocate. So I'm going to have that key set up as a function. So if I now look and I go to My Shortcuts, I see that I have a function key set up for sales orders. Allows me to just go ahead and press F5, and it takes me right into the sales order module. This is a nice feature you can set up. Again, quick, easy, so you can actually go into the system and you can see information. Let's call up a record here. One of the other features we have in SAP is the change log. This is nice if you want to see changes made to a certain marketing document. You need to see what was done before anything that was added. So if you notice here, I have a sales order up. I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to the change log. And you can see that this document has been changed 4 times. Right here we are is on the current document. So we double click, and we see the current document, instant number 4, which is we have here. Okay. If we go into number 3, we can see the document before the change was made. And I did this for the presentation. If you notice, there was no customer reference number on the document. So what I did is I added a customer reference. So you can see it this way. So if I was to go now here, and let's change this document number, and let's click Update. Okay. Let's go now back to the change log. And you can see as of today, there was another change. So if I double click on this one, I'm looking at my current change. You can see the customer reference number I added. If I go here to number 4, you can see the old number. Another thing I want to talk about, another tip, is defining the posting periods in SAP Business One. If you go here to Administration, under System Initialization, we have our posting periods. Right? As you can see here, we have posting periods from 2006 all the way to 2012. To define the periods, we click on New Period. Now, one of the things that comes up with in here, there's a couple little tricks that will help you, because when you set this up, one of the common pitfalls is the dates and also the subperiod. So we're going to create 2013. We're going to call it 2013. Okay? The subperiods. The issue here is that the default is years. Sometimes a lot of clients make a mistake by they select year. In that case, what you're doing is you're creating one period for the entire year. So normally, we do it in months. So we're going to create 12 months for the current period. Down here, you notice the dates. What SAP will do is we'll create 12 months, and the posting dates will default from the first of the month to the last of the month. If you look here, And if you look at period 1 of 2012, you can see the posting date is from January 1st, 2012, January 31st, and so on, February to February, March to March. One of the issues here is that you'll notice that it defaults the due dates and the document dates to the end of the year. The issue that happens here is towards the end of the year, when you have a customer with, say, net 30 days or net 45 days, when you're entering an invoice in December, you're going to get an error because it's going to try to set the due date into January, and it's going to tell you that you're out of the defined range. So what I do as a quick one, I don't change the posting periods. You can see it's locked, but I would just go here in the due date. I would put, say, 12/31/14. And I would go here and I would say 12/31/14. Right? I'm going to click Add. You can see now, if we come down here, what I've done is my dates are already set up onto the 14th. That's a nice little trick. If you forget to do that, and sometimes someone towards the end, November, December, you'll have an issue, you can always go into the corresponding period itself, and you can change the date manually. But in this case, I would have to go into several months and change. This way allows me to actually go in and set it up that way. So that's a nice issue we have setting up the system. Now I'm going to go into some of the features that are actually in the version 8.8, some of the nice features. If you notice from previous versions, you have this just kind of empty background that's not really being used. So SAP has something called the Cockpit. The Cockpit allows me to utilize this space and do a lot of procedures. The Cockpit is kind of a replacement for the My Menu. You guys are familiar with SAP. In the older versions, you had a My Menu. So in here, you can actually go and you can set things to the My Menu. So the Cockpit kind of allows you to replaces that, allows you to do more work. To activate the Cockpit, there's two things you need to do. First, under the System Initialization, General Settings, you now have a tab for Cockpit. You must enable the Cockpit at the company level. Once this is done, you can go into the individual users and set the Cockpit. So then you would go here to Tools, Cockpit, and enable My Cockpit. What this is going to do is going to turn the Cockpit on for the user, in this case, Sophie. The change will take place next time you log on. Again, for purposes here, I have another login here already set up. So we don't have to log off and log on. You notice now the menu has changed. Okay, you no longer have on top what you had before. You notice here you had the modules, the drag and relate, and the My Menu. Now it's been replaced. You have the My Cockpit in place of the My Menus. You still have the modules like standard SAP, and we still have the drag and relate. The Cockpit here allows you to actually, comes with cockpits out of the box. So for example, you have Home. You can click here and you can have a sales cockpit. And you can see you have some common functions here at the bottom. Sit here on My Menu, My Screen, some common functions, some alerts, and so on. You have a predefined one for that. You have a predefined one for the service, a predefined for financials, and so on. Well, let's create ours. Let's go to My Cockpit. Go to Home, and let's set the Cockpit. You'll see here the Widget Gallery. So we're going to go in here, and we're going to actually set this up. We're going to take the alerts and messages, which is in standard SAP, was up here. So we're going to take alerts, and we're just going to hold on to this, and we're going to drag it, and we're going to kind of drop it right here. Okay, make that a little bit bigger. We're going to go to Open Documents. We're going to grab this, and we're going to drop it right here. And then we're going to take the common functions, and we're going to drop it down here. Move this up a little bit. So under the Open Documents, let's click on Settings. And these are all the available open documents. So what I want to do here is I want to display quotations, sales orders, let's say deliveries, and AR invoices. And then I want to do purchase orders, say goods returned, AP invoices, and so on. Click OK. So now you can see we have on the screen ready available. We can see we have 23 open sales quotations. We have 26 open sales orders. So we can click here and we can view our open sales orders. Again, this is the open item list from SAP functionality. So I can look at my individual orders. I can filter, make this a little bit bigger. So I can come here and I can use my filter. So I'm going to filter, and I'm going to look at all the customers for ADA Technologies. I'm going to just click it. Okay, and now I have my open orders. With SAP, I can do my drill down, in standard SAP, and actually be in the order to see the order. Okay, common functions, this is, again, the My Menu. So I'm going to do things that I normally do throughout the day. So I'm going to go to Modules. I'm going to open up my Sales and AR. I'm going to take my sales quotation. I'm going to drag it and drop it into the common functions. Take my sales orders, drop it there. Let's go to purchase orders, drop it there. Invoice, and master data, and let's throw a report in there so we can look at the reports. Take the sales analysis and drop it in there. Okay. Now we have, again, our cockpit here. Reopen the main menu. So you can see common functions. So now if I click on here, I'm in the sales order. So again, like you saw the My Menu, I now have it here. So I can click in and I can set it up that way. You can define ones here if you want. You can actually go into Tools, under Cockpits. You can go to the Cockpit Management, and you can actually create one unique to you. So you can define one here. All right, then you can publish it, and it will actually be on the menu. So you can either do the home, or you can create a special one for people within the system. Okay. Another feature I want to talk about is some of the enhancements to the payment wizard. SAP made some functionality in the payment wizard now that I can actually do on-account payments. And I can also split payments. This was an issue with some of the older modules, that those functionalities had to be done through the outgoing payments and not so much the payment wizard. So let's go into the modules. Let's go to banking. Let's go into the payment wizard. Okay, we're going to start a new payment run. Okay, you can also see some further enhancements that were done on the system as I go through. So we're going to do an outgoing payment run. We're going to do it for checks. Right? We can go here. We can select a specific code for a vendor. So let's pick Acme Associates. Let's add them to the list. Let's select Next. We are going to pick a due date. Let's pick one out in time so we can pick up all our transactions. We're going to select our bank. So we're going to take this outgoing checks here. So let's go here and let's expand all. So now you can see that we have various invoices for payment. This is on the screen. So let's go here, and I'm going to unselect, and I'm going to grab this one here. Okay, for the $10,000, and we're going to make a payment of $10,000 even. Okay. But what we want to do is we want to do this in two payments. Okay, so we have the functionality here. We say we want to do two checks. The first check is going to be for $8,000, and the second check is going to be for $2,000. So I can make that split. I can also add manual, because at the same time I'm making this payment, but I have another vendor that I need to pre-order some materials, so I got to give them an on-account payment. I don't have an invoice yet, but I want to create a payment. So normally I would again have to go through the outgoing payments and do that, but I'm going to do it right now in the payment wizard. This is a feature added in the 8.8. I'm going to add a manual role. I'm going to go here and I'm going to select the vendor. Take Earthshaker. Okay, and we're using our payment method. Actually, let me pick a vendor. I picked a customer. I could easily do a customer too, but switch my vendor. Sorry about that. Let's pick Far East. Okay, we're going to use the outgoing payment method, and we're going to make a payment for $1,000. We can add a reference. Let's just say this is an on-account payment, and so on. We're going to click OK. We're going to click Next, and we're going to execute the payment run. You can see that the payment run was executed successfully. And you can see here that we did two payments were added, we did 2 checks, and actually a bank transfer was added. So we're going to finish this. So let's see what we've done. Let's go to the outgoing payments. So you can see here that we created an on-account payment to Far East Imports. If you notice down here, this was created by the payment wizard. You can see it's on account because we have $1,000 here and we didn't select a specific invoice for it. Let's go back a record. Okay, you can see here of this invoice for $10,000. All right, we did a payment. If we right-click and look at the payment means, you can see that we've actually created 2 checks. We created a check for the $8,000, and we created a check for the $2,000. Okay, and that's referenced in outgoing payment 65 and outgoing payment 66 for the on-account payment. Okay, so that's one of the features that we have with the payment wizard. The other thing I want to talk about is the last evaluated cost. This is an issue that comes up a lot with our clients, understanding the costing method. So I'm going to go here into the inventory, and I'm going to go to the item master data. I'm going to select an item. And if you see here from the pricing, you'll notice that you have a last purchase price, and you can see that's grayed out, so that's a system price that I can't really change. And I have the last evaluated price. Okay, so there's no last evaluated price on this one here. The last purchase price is triggered by the last AP invoice. So every time you do an AP invoice, whatever price you purchased it at will become the last purchase price. So in order to get the last evaluated price, we need to run the program to update that. So we're going to go into inventory reports, and we're going to go into the inventory report for that. Okay, we're going to run this. Actually, inventory evaluation. So I had a little bit of a problem with that report. We'll have to come back into that one there. I have a little issue. I'm sorry. I apologize on my computer here. It seems let's try it from here. Come back to that one. The other thing I want to show you is we're going to go back into the inventory item master. Okay, and there's a feature in SAP Business One called factors. It's kind of a little known feature that's kind of misunderstood. And you can see here, if I look at the item master under the sales data tab, I have 4 factors. I also have those under the purchasing data tab. Right? I have the factors here. What I did this one, I just renamed these by holding the control key and double clicking. I call this first factor pallets. I renamed this one to boxes and this one to units. So here I set up a factor. I have 1 pallet, which consists of 6 boxes, and there's 10 units to a box. So in this case, a pallet would be 60. So let's go into a purchasing document. Let's go into a purchasing here. Let's actually create a purchase order. We're going to select a vendor. Select our item. And you can see I have right now the pallets, the boxes, and the units. The quantity is coming up as 60 because I have 1 pallet. 1 pallet is composed of 6 boxes of 10 units each. Right? If I can change this to 2 pallets and have it go to 120. Let's say I have a special order, and for some reason, instead of having 10 units to a box, we're going to sell 12 units to a box. So it allows you to do that. It also allows you to do fractions or partials. So we're going to go select it again, and we can say we want to sell half a pallet, okay? And it's going to give you 30. This is available for the sales and the purchasing side. Another feature, and the last feature we're going to talk about today, is something new called data archiving. Data archiving allows you to take a lot of the information, old information on the system, allows you to store it into a backup or a separate database. And what it'll do is it'll create a journal entry for the difference in the system, and then it'll store it in that database, and you can then set that database up to be retrieved. To do that, there's a couple things that you must do. In order to data archiving, you must make sure that you've gone to utilities and you've done the period end closing, okay, which I did for the 2006. You also have to make sure that the posting periods for the time frame that you want to archive have been locked. So you can see here I locked 2006. Okay? It also is going to require a backup of the database, which I've already done, and to make sure everybody's out of the database. So I'm going to go and I'm going to exit this other session. Okay, now we can do the data archiving. And for purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to go show you here. I'm going to go into financials, chart of accounts, and I'm going to pull up a general ledger account here, the checking account. You can see here under the checking account, I have a lot of transactions here from 2006. All right, I'm going to archive 2006. So what's going to happen is this transactions will be stored in a separate database, and this will be condensed into a journal entry. Okay, so let's go in. Administration. Let's go to utilities. Let's go to the data archive wizard. Okay, Like with other SAP functions, the wizard will guide you through the system. And it's going to tell you what we're going to do. Once the data is removed from the database, it's permanent. That's why we do a backup, and it's recommended that you always do the backup. So we're going to go here. You can also run a simulation. So it will actually run the simulation, tell you what's going to be archived without actually doing it. For today's presentation, we're just going to start the data archive run. What it's going to do, it's going to, by default, it's going to close all the add-ons. Okay. And it's going to give me a warning to back up the database. So let me do a quick backup of our database. Okay, our database was successful. Run it here. Okay, so we already have our database. So again, it's going to give you a data archive run. You can actually change this. This is going to be, when it creates the database backup, this is going to be an attachment on the database. What it's doing, it's putting 1, because it's the first archive I'm doing today, as in the date. And that'll be part of the attachment. The archive period, so we're going to back up 2006. I'm going to go here and select December of 2006. Okay. Here for evaluation, I have some of my, since the demo database, I'm using multiple currencies. So I'm just going to go ahead and one here as the rate. We click next. Give it a few minutes to go through. What it's going to do, it's going to actually give you what's known as clusters. You'll see that some of the clusters will be okay to archive and some will not. A cluster is basically a series of transactions. For example, if you, let's say, and they have to be closed. Like, so for example, let's say you created a sales order and you copy that sales order to a delivery, and then you copy the delivery to an AR invoice, and then you paid the AR invoice, the process is complete. So that cluster will come over. It'll archive. In the case that the AR invoice was not paid, it's still open, then that cluster will not come over because the process is not complete. So let's take a couple minutes. We'll go through this. So you can see now you have the different clusters. You can, if you notice, this one here has a check mark. So if I double click on it, you can see that this is going to be archived. Make this a little bit bigger for you. Okay. And again, because of the whole process. Right? There's AR invoices, deliveries, quotes. All these things, like I explained before, have been closed out. If we go back to the cluster and we look at this one here with the X, okay, this is not going to move over, okay, because again, the process is not complete. So let's go next. Again, we're going to run this, okay, so we're going to do it for the entire period, which is the entire year of December. We can put a reference because it's going to create some journal entries in the background. And I'm going to just put in the, let's click next. Right. That's going to tell you what's going to happen. It's going to basically reduce the size of the database. It's going to give you some information here. So we're going to click next. And again, it tells me it's going to create a read-only backup of the database, which again, like you said, you can access it. That'll allow you to look at information. When you would have to set that database like you would an SAP database. You'd have to kind of go into the system and actually set the database with a name and create it. It's going to remove the transactional data. It's going to create the archiving transactions, which I'll show you in a moment, shrink the database, and so on. Let this run for a minute. We have a lot of demo data here, but it also depends on the processing time of the system. There we go. So we started archiving. Very important to make a backup because, like I said, this is irreversible. So once you run this, these transactions are no longer in this database. I do recommend you do it in a yearly basis. If you've had SAP for a while and you have 6 or 7 years of data, it is nice to archive, those old years because it just makes it a lot more proficient in your SAP and plus looking up your data. You don't have to go through all the old records. So I'm just going to just basically finish here, and then I'll show you what happened in the general ledger. Okay, so there it is. It tells you the reduction of the database size, percentage, the transactions got removed, and so on. So we're going to close this out. Let's go back now to financials, chart of accounts, and let's call up the account. You'll notice the amount is still the same. I haven't really changed anything. But now when I go, okay, I no longer have all those transactions that took place in the year 2006. I have one journal entry. Okay. And you can see how the names I gave it, and it did everything. So it took all that information, okay, and basically archived it. So it's no longer available to see here within our database now, but it's stored and the balances and everything carried forward. Okay. So let's recap real quick what we've done. Today we learned about creating shortcuts, how to use function keys to open up documents, using the change log to see the different changes within marketing documents, defining posting periods. We learned the trick of changing the ending dates for the document date and the due date, so we don't cause issues towards the end of the year with overlapping years. The SAP Cockpit, the new feature. This is kind of a replacement for the My Menu. It allows me to add feature functionality to the SAP background. The enhancements to the payment wizard, the concept of adding on-account payments to the payment wizard, as well as splitting multiple payments within the payment wizard. Using the last evaluated cost, apologize for the issue on that, but what that does is the program will actually use the last evaluated cost. That cost can be used in the various SAP reports, like the last purchase price or other costing methods you have set up. Using item master factors, kind of a little unknown thing that most people don't understand in SAP, but allows you, instead of creating multiple units of measure, allows you to actually set factors like units of measure that can be changed on the fly. And finally, data archiving. Right? When you have a lot of years of data, this allows you to take that data, archive into a unique database to clean your SAP and make it run more efficient and still have it access read-only mode. That concludes our presentation today. Again, my name is Dennis with Michell Consulting. You can reach us here. You can like us on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for your time.